An Aboriginal leader in Canada has said she will not meet with Prime Minister Stephen Harper unless the Governor-General joins the talks. Theresa Spence has said the attendance of the Governor-General, David Johnston, is essential when discussing the rights of Aborigines. Johnston is the representative of Britain's Queen Elizabeth, who is also Canada's head of state. Spence has been on a hunger strike since last month in protest at poor living conditions of Native communities across Canada. The Natives have held many protests in support of their chief over the past few weeks. They are also protesting against legislation that affects Aboriginal lands and rights. Native communities have said the government rushed the bill through Parliament without consultation with Native groups. Well, to discuss that a bit further, we're now joined by Joshua Blakeney, Press TV's correspondent, who's joining us now via Skype from Calgary. Now, Joshua, give us an idea about how the Governor-General and even the Canadian government are expected to react to this Aboriginal leader's latest demand.
Well, it seems that in Canadian law, Section 35 of the Canadian Constitution does claim that Aboriginal and treaty rights are hereby recognised and affirmed. And so Theresa Spence is merely attempting to facilitate what is mandated by Canadian law, which is that Aboriginal people negotiate often with the Crown, because Canada has, in its history, developed a treaty system which distinguished Canada from the United States, where there was a kind of more militant, genocidal approach towards Aboriginal relations. Of course, the one reason that Canada actually exists as a country is because of the more benevolent and benign approach the British had towards Indigenous peoples, which alienated and estranged those who later became the founding fathers of the United States, and who went on to refer to the merciless Indian savages in the Declaration of Independence. And this pertained to a philosophy that emerged in the British Empire in the 13 colonies of trying to placate Indigenous peoples by trying to get them to consent to the westward expansion. And that emerged into a kind of treaty system in Canada. And the Aboriginal peoples in this country, I think many of them feel fortunate that the Crown did attempt to make some kind of negotiated settlement when it came to the colonization of Canada. Now, that's Canada's heritage. However, you know, if we flash forward to 2012, these written documents, which the Aboriginal peoples hold up as being a recognition of their inherent rights, that those documents are being spat upon by the politicians who are here today, gone tomorrow, who wouldn't exist if they weren't being buttressed and funded by resource companies and, of course, by Canada's Zionist lobby. That is a big problem in this country, where you have the media and the political establishment so thoroughly Zionized that they are celebrating colonialism invariably when it comes to the Middle East. And when we look domestically in Canada, it's clearly not tenable for such politicians to side with the colonized, to uphold a more benign approach to colonial relations than that which we see Israel, for example, or the United States displaying. And so we have this better heritage in Canada of trying to negotiate treaties, trying to sit down over the table and find some resolution to colonial disputes. But we have a government that's more oriented, shall we say, towards the Republican Party of the United States and the Likud Party of Israel. And their philosophy is one of trying to put down the underdog, and might is right. And that's why we see disputes emerging. Now, the Governor-General's role is quite significant also, because it provides a kind of third party for the Indigenous peoples. You know, we see this big problem in the world where Indigenous peoples exist within nation states that have been imposed upon them. And many Indigenous people in Canada feel that it's not really tenable, for example, in this locale where I live, for the Anishinaabe or the Blackfoot or the Lubicon to go into a Calgary courthouse where you have a white judge, overseeing disputes. Many would like to go to a third party, be it the United Nations or the International Criminal Court, or some, more dispassionate and objective judicial body that can address these important juridical questions. And so the Governor-General and the Crown has kind of traditionally played that role of trying to stand between the local elites, the local judges and politicians, and the Indigenous peoples, and try to be the arbiter and mediator between these two factions.
All right, Joshua, I do apologize once again for having to stop you, but we'll have to leave it there for now. But we do appreciate, of course, your insight. That was Joshua Blakeney, Press TV's correspondent, speaking to us via Skype from Calgary. Now, the U.S. Labor Secretary Hilda Solis has resigned, becoming the fifth cabinet member to leave President Barack Obama's administration since his re-election. In a message, Solis said she made the decision after